Welcome to Specific Lab. Today I'm going to show you how my son built this awesome display shelving for all his little miniature figures. Let's begin. I try to get my son into the shop about once a week to get him building with his hands. He has built a basic headphone stand from a 2x10, a Mother's Day gift from scrap wood around the shop, and he has helped me with a few of my own projects. But this time he needed a wall display for his miniature figures, which were taking up some of his desk space. So to get him started, I drew up some basic plans on SketchUp so that he could see the design and hopefully take less time to build it. These measurements changed a little during the construction, but the basic idea was the same. He first measured out the sides and top pieces on a 1x4 and then moved it over to the miter saw to make the first cuts. He did a great job of making sure the cuts were straight and even by using the first cut as a template for the second. He then lightly touched up the edges with some 150 grit paper just to remove the splinters and rough spots. Now to keep the shelves of this project simple and adjustable, we decided to use shelf pegs on the sides. So we carefully measured out and marked the locations before using a jig. He had never used this particular jig before, so I let him test out the setup on some scrap wood. He figured it out quickly and then drilled the sides on the shelf. And after a light sanding, he grabbed the traditional cherry stain and gave all 4 sides a nice coating. He then used some chopsticks to keep the wood off the table and then set them to the side to dry. As the next Friday came around, he was ready to construct the frame. He first started by measuring out the locations of the screws. And to keep this a simple build, we decided to use butt joints. This is not a strong connection, but it should work for his needs. He then pre-drilled all of the holes to prevent splitting the ends, followed by a shallow countersink for the same reason. He also added a light coating of wood glue to the corner before clamping it in place with a corner square. If you have never used a corner square before, we highly recommend you buying some. They make the process of connecting 2 pieces at a 90-degree angle much easier. He then added 2 screws to each corner, and the basic frame was complete. Now for the back of this shelf, we plan to use some 1/8" hardboard, but first it had to be trimmed to size. So he measured out the size, then used a circular saw with an old level as a straight edge. And after a quick test fit, he secured it in place with several small nails. He also used a small punch to make the nails flush and to prevent from damaging the shelf. And by the next Friday, he was ready to have this project finished, but it still needed some shelves. The original plan was to use some 1/4" plywood, but it could warp because of the width, so I found some scrap 1/2" plywood that would work. He then cut these down to the correct dimensions using a combination of the miter saw, circular saw, and the table saw. I then asked if he wanted to stain them, but he preferred the natural look, so he just touched them up with a little sanding. As for the shelf pegs, he did have to lightly tap most of them in place with a hammer because it was a very tight fit. Now to display the shelf on the wall, we decided to use some sawtooth hangers at 16" centers so the nails could be positioned in the wall studs. He was then excited to install the shelves. Alright, with the completion of my son's largest project to date, I have a little gift for him and he doesn't know about this. I wanted to be the first to help add to his collection a little Tony Stark character.
Oh my gosh. This is amazing. Oh, I've been wanting this too. Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, if you enjoyed this project, make sure you click the like button. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. And as always, have fun building.